Episode 1. Here we are. This is your Party People podcast, your exclusive wedding podcast. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Katie.
And we're here to give you all of our opinions, tips, ideas,
experience.
Tricks.
Yeah.
All the know-its and the know-hows about weddings, because weddings are scary and hard to plan.
They are.
And truthfully, I feel like that's why some people don't want to get married, is because they're scary.
Yes.
Not
they're
even
scary,
the actual
intimidating.
idea. Yes.
Right.
I mean, you have this person you love, but you're like, now we have to dish out all this money.
Thousands of dollars.
And feed all these people. And we're like, do we even really like all these people? Or are we just paying them because our parents like these people?
That too. That's a triumph in itself.
Yeah, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about today, right? So
Yeah.
Episode 1, we're going to talk about the fact that weddings are expensive. And one of the biggest investments you're going to make in your life, right? Like we've said before, I feel like we've had this conversation 1,000 times as wedding vendors, that the biggest investments you make in your life are what? Buying a home, planning for retirement, and what was the other one? Oh, like a car.
Yes.
A car, a home, retirement, higher education, going to college.
Higher education, that was
right?
it
How
too.
much money do we spend on all of these things? And then we're supposed to be equal to that and spend that on an event.
And sometimes they like jump right in and just know what to spend where and be sticker shocked left and right. And
right.
so we're here to kind of give you like a base and
Absolutely.
tell you where to start and kind of how to navigate through that a little bit.
Right. Well, and I feel like the best way to start that is we are Midwest wedding vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And the areas that I service a lot are South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota. And I remember Tommy and I got married in 2019, and we probably spent close to $28,000.
Yeah.
But like what year did you and Matt get married?
2014.
And roughly?
It was around 45,000, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
And coming from a wedding planner, though, like that, I mean, you have all the details on like the extra things like that you probably wanted.
Right.
Right.
And I knew what I wanted. Totally different planning your own, though.
Right.
Like making those decisions. And there's a lot of pressure in that.
Right.
I'd rather help somebody do it than do that all again. But
I feel like everyone says that. Like, I'd rather take photos of other people than have people take pictures of me. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
Please don't.
Mm-hmm.
Please delete it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, we were looking at the knot.
Yep.
And seeing kind of the trend in, what'd you say, 2018, 2019 is when it was like climbing to.
So the average in 2019, the national average for the United States for a wedding cost in 2019 was roughly, what was it? Like $33,000.
Yeah.
And because of COVID, which we all know and love so much, that national average dropped so far down to 19,000. So right now, the average couple in 2020 spent about $19,000 on their wedding, which is completely skewed because
of COVID. And
typically
lower guest counts.
Guest counts are anywhere from 130 to even like 300 most of the time, especially in the Midwest.
Oh, Midwest. I mean, we have up to 500.
Yes.
And that's like, you don't really blink. It's like, 500 people. You're inviting the whole town. Yeah. Like, let's do
everyone I know, everyone I've ever known.
Yeah.
My whole graduating class.
I have to invite, her. She'll be hurt if I don't, all of that.
My mom gave me a guest list. Yeah. So let's talk about South Dakota because that's where we're both based.
Yeah.
The state average in 2020 for South Dakota was $29,200. And that's a lot.
That is a lot.
And that's probably close to what we paid.
Yeah,
for ours as well.
It is. And honestly, it's like kind of right in the middle. Like I have a list here I'm looking at comparing to all the different states. And we're like right in the middle.
Yeah, that's
of
like
that
baseline almost,
yeah.
I feel like.
Like the highest, you get to like your New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island up there. And it's like average of 50,000.
Right.
And we're below that. But like there are more averages around like 20, even under 20. So it's a huge investment.
Oh, massive. Like an undergraduate degree, a 4-year degree is probably close to the same, upwards $30,000 to $50,000 depending on what program you're in and what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think there's so much extra pressure with that because it is one day you're spending all that money on. Like, you're planning and like you're on that, journey and planning that, but it is all that money ends in one day.
Yeah. And then it's not like a house, where you take out a mortgage loan and then you sell the house and you get money back. There's no return. I mean, like, yes, you get gifts and like cards and things like that, but like you can't count that as like a return on investment. Like what, like a $50 bill or a Target registry? Like that's not, you can't compare that, but this is still like just a huge investment.
Yeah. And the return, it's all emotional.
Right. Yeah.
There's not much logic that goes in to spending this much money on one day. It's all emotional, but you guys, it is like one of the biggest days of your life.
Oh,
and that sounds so cliche, but it's so true.
Oh my gosh.
And it's worth it, but it's also worth like getting educated about it up front and like having somewhat of a plan with and your budget.
Like even planning it, I feel, especially like the wedding boom that's coming right now. Now all these people want to get married now. And it's like, where do I start? Like, I wasn't even planning on getting married because COVID rescheduled me so many times, or I was laid off because of COVID. So I don't have any money. Like, what are my options even? And it's like, financial planning is something I don't think people realize they can do, or that there's a profession for that. Like, meeting with someone who handles budgets and handles numbers like that is so good, because like when I was researching like the biggest investments you make in your life, never once did I see a wedding come up. And that's like shocking to me, because like, how is it not like, it might be short term. Yes, it's one day, but it's your whole life. You are getting married to one person.
Yeah.
And we all hope to do it one time and one time only.
Right. So therefore it's a long-term investment.
Yes, it's lifelong investment.
Mm-hmm.
And like anything you put into that day, it does come back. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to look at your photos, your video, or like you're going to save your bouquet and dry it, or you're going to look back at that and say like, wow, I can't believe that I spent that much money on it, but I'm so glad that I did.
And it's a milestone, and it's worth it to like capture all those moments, because it is one day and such a big investment.
Absolutely.
So that's your return, right? To have those things to look back on and those memories. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So opinion, I feel like meeting with a financial planner is so, so, so important. Even if it's just like meeting with a wedding planner and like saying, hey, I'm really interested in having someone plan it for me and help me figure out a budget. Like, even that's okay to like inquiry and like just figure out what even can I make my budget? What can I afford? Because I feel like too, some people like look up budgets online and they'll say, okay, I shouldn't spend more than this on a dress or this on a photographer or caterer, but it doesn't work that way. I feel like you need to find what's most important to you and your significant other, and then base your budget off of that.
That's exactly right. Like my biggest, tip I would say is like pick your top 3 like vendors that you really want to invest in.
Right.
Like food. If you really want like a good meal that people like talk about and they remember, and you guys, people remember the food. They remember if it's really good, and they also remember if it's really bad. So, and just like the party, the reception, having a DJ that like you vibe with, you connect with, and will play all the music and get your people out there and, celebrate. Like just kind of decide what's really important to you.
Yeah,
like Lexi, what was one of the things when you guys were planning? Like you were like, okay, this is at the top of my list. This is what
I have worked in so many areas of the wedding industry that like I interned for you. And then after I interned for you, I went to Tommy and I said, we absolutely have to have a planner, because I will literally lose my mind if we do not have one. After like being on the other side of planning and realizing like how much work goes into it, and like day of coordination where you guys are there literally from the beginning of the day to the end, it's like insane the amount of work that you guys do. And like setting up and tearing down, I feel like seems like such an easy task until you have to wrangle 130 drunk relatives and say, you need to put all this glass in a box and not break it so that I can sell it on Facebook Marketplace tomorrow, which never actually works out. So it's just like we sat down and we were like, it's got to be a planner. I don't want to bring any decorations home. I just don't want any clutter, because I'm a hoarder naturally. I keep things and put sentimental value to things, even if there's nothing.
Use that one time,
like,
I'll
130 glass votives. I'll
I'll
use it when I take a bath, spa night. But like in reality, like they sit in a box and Tommy's like, Lexi, come on. He's like a minimalist. He's like, can I just like throw everything away? I'm like, don't touch anything. Don't throw it away. I'm going to use it. And he's like, Lexi, it's got dust on it. Like, it's bad. It's got to go. So yes, planning definitely was a huge thing. Tommy and I both being in media, photo,
obviously,
close second.
Yes.
Close second. And we had seen Corey Gross, love him, had been watching his stuff for so long and had worked with him a couple times. We were like, it's got to be Corey. Whatever the price tag is, we will work around it. And that's exactly what we did. We were like, we don't want to spend more than, we really said we didn't want to spend more than like 26. And we said, anything else that we like, we'll just figure out how much it was. Like my dress, a little more on the spendy side. I didn't want it to be, but the dress that I fell in love with ended up being a little outside of my budget. And so
like,
we
you
adjusted
don't want to settle.
I
mean, it's the dress.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And my indecisiveness took me through a lot of dresses. And I thought I found the dress about 19,000 times, but I found one and I was like, this is the one. I'm not changing my mind anymore. My mom's like, okay, because I swiped my card, so you're done. And I was like, okay, I'm really done then because you paid for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what were your and Matt's top 3?
I couldn't even put them in exact order. I would say 3 things, like full on tied.
Yeah.
Photo.
Yep.
Because I huge picture person.
Right.
Like capture the moment. Did it even happen if you don't have a picture? Like that's kind of how I
No, it didn't. It didn't happen.
That's how I like to roll. So photo for sure. Actually like DJ music.
Right.
I really wanted everyone there to have like the best time.
Right.
We had a lot of people traveling up from Texas. Matt's from Texas.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted everybody to like, I wanted to thank them in having in the way of having a really fun time.
Yeah.
So music for sure. And then, I mean, I'm a huge floral person. I love flowers. I love the details. I love decor, color, all of that.
Right.
And so I really wanted my budget to go towards that as well. So those 3 things. I mean, food, Matt and I, I wouldn't say argue, but we had, a couple conversations about food and like the budget for that. And I'm like, okay, I don't want it to be bad, obviously.
Right.
Like I want to have good food for
like,
my
I don't
people
be
too.
Spending $30 a plate.
Right. But like we actually had a full-blown tasting and we had like the lobster mac and cheese. We had the beef tenderloin, all of that stuff. And then we're like, okay, we have it narrowed down. And we saw the price and we were like, gosh, I mean, we picked the top stuff. We are food people. So we're big foodies. And then like a couple months later, we were like, you know what? We love Italian food.
Right.
We actually met in Italy studying abroad. So we kind of like did a little flair.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
Friends for so long. Okay.
No.
You have to tell me that.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. But and so we were like, let's just do like pizza and pasta.
Right.
And so that kind of helped us cut the per person in half.
Oh, absolutely.
So that helped us like put money towards the other vendors that we really were, I wouldn't say like more important, but like, those areas just mattered
prioritized.
more.
Yeah. And I feel like two people like think that dinner has to be this like huge extravagant thing.
No.
And like, of course it's like great, but like I've been to so many weddings where like pizza comes out and I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so
like,
good.
You're going to
now.
like this.
Yes. And like we were going to do pasta as well because we felt like that was like the safe option. And like when we did our tasting, she came out and she's like, actually like we do tacos as well. And like we're kind of testing them out. Like, do you want to just try them and just see if you like them? And we're like, they're really messy, but like free food. So we'll just, sure. Like we'll try them. And we like ate it and we like looked at each other and we're like, we're doing tacos.
Don't
we're
you love Taco Bell?
Taco Bell is my favorite place to eat, and Tommy absolutely hates Taco Bell because Tommy is a premium food kind of person. He's like Taco John's or nothing, and I'm like, what's wrong with 5 $1 Dorito tacos?
Yeah, and that liquid gold cheese.
Yes,
what's wrong with that?
Extra cheese. Always get extra cheese. So yes, I think it's super important to at least discuss your top 3 vendors. Like with video, Tommy doing videography, he can't do his own video. And Tommy, like, just the vision he had for a video was like so much higher than what our area offered at the time.
Right.
And so he gave me a list of the people that he liked, and I reached out to them, and they're all from the coast. They're all from like these really beautiful areas, starting out $6,000. And I was like, Tommy, we either just have a video and elope somewhere. Or we do something else.
Like that's your only one area that you're putting towards?
Yes. Yeah. And so we ended up going to a thrift store, trusting buying 2 VHS camcorders, and we gave one to the groomsmen, one to the bridesmaids, and just let them float around all day. And it's really funny because Corey actually like ended up loving it and ended up like becoming a videographer for the day with camcorders because he was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, that's right.
And like carrying them around with all his gear as well. And so it turned out really great. But like it's things like that. Like even though video was super important to us, it just like when it came down to it in the scheme of things, like we had to come up with a different creative solution to make what we wanted. And we did get exactly what we wanted. And honestly, we were probably more happy with the outcome of the VHS than we were straightening our whole budget back out to go back to fit that in.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, it's so expensive. And it's just like, where do you even start? Like, you sit down, you're engaged. I remember we got engaged and I'm like, what do we do now? Like, do we book people now? We booked 2 years out. 2 years. We had a 2-year engagement.
I would do that over waiting.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
The first couple weeks, the first month, like get your vendors booked and who you want because the wedding industry is crazy and people, you know,
it's insane.
It's more of a production now. And so it's better to like get those vendors booked and then you feel like, okay, I have a good base. Right. I don't need to worry about if I'm not going to have those people that I want on my one day.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Like I remember we went to the venue we really wanted, which is Icon Lounge here in Sioux Falls. And we went and we toured it. This was like 2 years out. We were honestly just looking because we had free time and we liked it. And we were just like, we'll just go. And the event planner there told us that like, okay, so like you guys are really set on it. That's great. What we can do is a soft hold. It doesn't require any money. But if someone else does ask about your date, you'll have, I think it was like 24 to 48 hours to decide if we wanted to pay our deposit or if she could pass it on. The deposit was only $1,000 for the room at the time. So that was great for us. But we also felt like maybe that's a lot of money to drop like within 24 to 48 hours. I kid you not, 2 days had not even gone by. And like she messaged us and was like, someone else has asked about your date. And we were like, there's no way. It is 2 years away. Like, how is that possible? And like even now, current day, like we are booking 2022 and we have even had like 1 or 2 people ask about 2023. And it's like, it's just insane because you don't realize how much planning goes into a wedding until you're actually getting married and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Right. And going back to like the biggest investment.
Yeah.
Having that time. Yeah. Right. I know some people don't want to wait and I totally get that.
Yes.
But like having that time to plan also gives you time to save for this big investment.
Yes.
I would say, wouldn't you agree, like the biggest time you need the most like cash on hand is right up front. Because a lot of those vendors, they have deposits. They need to officially hold your date because they can't, then they can turn it away to other people. Right. So that makes sense. And then, and every vendor I would say is kind of different with their payment plan and how you pay along the way. Right. But the biggest time is right up front when you're reserving your date and then that like 2-3 week before your date.
When that last payment comes through. Yeah. So I feel like all those deposits come through and then like the week or 2 before your wedding, all these random little expenses just trickle through. Like you're like, oh, I didn't even think that I'm going to need this or this or this. And like all of a sudden you've spent $500 in 3 days because of all these Amazon things you have to randomly buy that you didn't even think about.
Right.
And
it's the
just
markers for the guest book board I have.
Yes.
All those little
the
things.
Fake petals for my flower girl. Like I feel like all of these little things add up at the end. And the deposits are always massive. Like you always have these huge deposits. And it's not that, I feel like the deposits are more scary than any other payment. Like, because now all of a sudden you've reached all these people. They all have your date available. And you're like, okay, what do? We drop 10 grand in all these equivalent deposits and then be done. And it's not like, you go to the store, like you bought a boat, right? You take the boat home. You get nothing.
I know.
You literally pay all this money and you're
reserving.
like, now I wait.
Yeah.
Now I wait for 2 years to go by. And then hopefully it will all be okay.
Yeah.
And it always is.
Yes. And like, what am I trying to say? Like we're not trying to like scare you with how much like investment it is, but that's why like just figure out what's really important to you.
And I feel like that's why some people lose out on the vendors they most want is because all of the sudden they're sticker shocked with all these deposits and they're like, well, maybe I need to try to find someone cheaper.
No.
But it will all end up equaling the same. Like the deposits you pay versus the actual amount that you spend at the end will almost always end up the same, because even if, like, say your deposit scares you here, so you try to cut your budget somewhere else, you're still going to end up paying something more somewhere else.
That's exactly right.
So it's just like, find who you love, find who's the right fit. I always tell clients too, like, if you don't feel like we could hang out after your wedding date, like, that's important.
Yes.
Because literally, like, any vendor you have is in your face all day. DJ, planner, caterer, like, we all eventually see your face that day and are in your face. I'm like, hi, this is what I need from you. Hi, how are you doing? Hi, can I get you anything? And it's just like, from a vendor perspective, it is scary to like ask someone like, hey, this is my number. Like, for me as a photographer to give a quote out, I'm like so scared, because I was a bride. Like, I know how scary that is.
You know how they're going to feel.
Yes. Yeah. And I know how overwhelming that feeling is. But at the same time, like, what I provide for them is so worth everything that, you know, we charge. Like, what we do every day, full time, is like so, like, not even explainable, unfathomable how important it is and lifelong those things last. Even planning, like, how smooth the day goes sometimes literally is dependent on you guys. And so when they look back and think, wow, I feel like I wasn't stressed at all, that comes from the fact that, like, they invested in a good vendor that made them feel secure and safe on their day.
And, like, honestly, can you put a price on that?
Absolutely.
Can you put a price on, like, peace of mind?
Right.
Like, it's one day, and you guys, I'm sure everybody has told you already too, it goes by so fast.
So fast.
Like, in a flash. And so you want to be able to, like, soak in those moments, and you don't want to worry about like the little things, like nobody's lighting the candles, is the food ready? Like, you want to count on those people that you hired and making this investment to do those things for you.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to jump to a huge thing that affects that investment too, is the guest list.
Oh, absolutely.
So that guest list, like, prioritizing who you want on that.
Right.
And it affects everything, right?
Absolutely.
Like, everything. And so that's a huge, when you make your budget and before you make it, like, get that narrowed down to where you're pretty sure on who you're inviting.
Absolutely. And what do they say? I think they say it's like 80% of who you invite shows up, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you have that wiggle room. And, like, if you're comfortable with a number, invite those extra people. The chances of people, like, last minute not being able to come, or like something happening, or like our wedding, we invited, I think, like 180. And I think we had like 150, 140 show up.
Sounds about right.
And that, I feel like, is just about every wedding we go to. We did have friends that got married. They invited like 180, and they had like almost 300 people show up, because like their family was inviting.
Well, that's
like, everybody.
terrifying.
Literally so terrifying. And I feel like that never happens.
No,
I feel like that is
that's
always like a
rare.
1% chance.
It's
and
usually
like,
that 20%. You can take 20% that doesn't show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's just so important. It is such a big investment, and it's just so important to remember, like, sit down, take a deep breath,
take the time,
open a drink, beer, wine, whatever
Cheers,
yes, literally, whatever your drink of choice is, sit down and just honestly don't even talk about numbers at first. I think it's so important to just say, like, what's important to you?
Yeah.
And then say, well, this is what's important to me. Let's figure out what 3 we pick first and go from there. And then the numbers will fall into place as you find people, and maybe make like a cap number. Okay, I don't want to go above 26. And it's so scary to say, like, oh, I'm going to spend this much money. But truthfully, you are, and you have to be realistic with yourself and with your life. Like, you're getting married. So this is a huge thing to learn, especially right at the beginning of a marriage, is like big investment, right? Like, because what comes after most people get married, they buy a house.
Right.
And so, like, it's so important to like take this as like almost like a training and learning opportunity as a couple to like learn how each other handles the stress and like the flow of things. And yeah, it's just super important. It's a huge investment.
Right. Good. Well, thanks for listening to us today. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yes.
For our next episode.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good one.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.